The mountains had fallen silent. But the sea remembered. From the edges of Iceland to the sands of Morocco, the ocean began to breathe, a pulse every 30 seconds, steady, human, alive. They called it the pulse line. But to Elias Ward, it was something else, a call. And when he answered, the Atlantic opened its heart. The wind had teeth that morning. It scoured the ridges of Glacier Gulch clean of snow, carving the landscape into sharp surgical lines. The world looked newly made, or freshly flayed. Elias walked the ridge with Rune limping at his heel. The dog's shoulder wound had reopened during the climb, but the blood that seeped from it wasn't red anymore. It shimmered faintly gold in the cold air, like liquid metal remembering how to bleed. He wrapped the shoulder in gauze, whispering, "We're not done, old boy." Rune's amber eyes met his, calm and ancient. The smaller horn in Elias's pack pulsed once, a heartbeat echoing from inside the leather. That's when he saw the smoke. 2 miles east, just beyond the timberline, a column of black rose against the pale sky, the shape of something burning with precision, not chaos. He knew what that meant before he heard the rotors. The Vale had arrived. Liora came to with a migraine of light and motion. Her wrists were cuffed, her head pressed against cold metal flooring. The air smelled of ozone and gun oil. She blinked through the blur to see armed men in matte gray suits, no insignia, faces hidden behind transparent masks. A voice, low and practiced, cut through the cabin noise. "Dr. Vale, I'd say welcome back, but you've caused quite a mess." The man sat opposite her, late 40s, trim beard, wearing a black tactical coat that fit him like authority itself. His eyes were the only warm thing about him. "Director Halverson," Liora said, tasting blood in her mouth. "You still remember my name. Good. Saves us time." He gestured to a screen bolted to the wall. It showed drone footage of the gulch, the pulse of light before the collapse, then the crater ceiling shut. "You've stumbled into something that doesn't belong to you, Doctor. That anomaly under Bitterroot isn't new. We've been tracking microseismic patterns like it for decades. What you triggered woke up a network that spans half the continent." Liora's voice was steady despite the cuffs. "You mean the architects?" Halverson's eyes narrowed. "That's a convenient name. But no, they're not gods, and they're not your discovery. They're a contagion, a system designed to rewrite biological code, and your friend just gave it a host." She froze. "Elias?" He nodded once. His readings changed. Brain activity, blood chemistry, even his dog. Whatever happened down there, it bound them to the vault's signal. We can't shut it down without them. "So you plan to dissect him?" Halverson smiled thinly. "I prefer the word recover." Elias reached the smoking perimeter by nightfall. Black transport trucks ringed the valley. Floodlights stabbed through the snow like search beams from another world. Rune growled low. "Easy," Elias whispered, crouching behind a burned tree. Through the drifting ash, he saw Liora, restrained, standing beside Halverson at a field table glowing with monitors. Her hair whipped in the wind, her face bruised but unbroken. Halverson said something Elias couldn't hear, then turned toward a shipping container at the edge of camp. Soldiers moved to open it. Inside, something stirred. The air around it shimmered like heat haze, distorting the floodlight beams. The shape that emerged was human, or close to it, wrapped in a suit of translucent plates that flexed like muscle. The creature's eyes glowed faintly blue. "Subject 12, Halverson announced to his team. "Recovered from the Utah site. Neural patterns stabilized after exposure to architect resonance. Ready for synchronization." Liora's voice broke through the static of the wind. "You're insane. You're trying to merge them." Halverson looked at her. "Not merge. Reclaim. The first vaults were biological servers, Doctor. Organic consciousness meant to store the memory of civilizations. The bodies you call subjects. They're backups, he signaled. The soldiers turned the creature toward her. And now, thanks to your field partner, we can access the mainframe. Elias moved before thought. He looped down the slope, silent, using the snow to swallow his footsteps. Rune followed, limping but focused. He reached the camp's edge, slid under a vehicle chassis, and drew the pistol from his belt. The horn in his pack began to hum, faintly, like a compass pointing home. He looked up. The creature, Subject 12, was standing beneath the central light. Cables connected it to a generator array, veins of blue energy running through the lines. Liora was forced to watch. Halverson spoke into a comlink. Initiate resonance, match pulse to the Bitterroot pattern. The ground trembled. Elias felt it first, that heartbeat, faster now, syncing with the generator rhythm. The horn in his pack burned against his spine. Rune barked once, a deep echo of that same frequency. The creature screamed, its body convulsed, plates fracturing, light bursting from every seam. The snow around it melted into steam. On the monitors, the waveform of its neural output aligned perfectly with the data Liora had captured underground. "It's linking," she shouted. "Stop, you'll kill it." Halverson didn't flinch. "It's not alive." The creature turned. Its voice was layered, human, mechanical, ancient. "The vault remembers." Every generator light blew out at once. Silence. Then, from the darkness, a voice, familiar. "Elias." Liora turned. He was there, stepping through the fog like a ghost, Rune at his side. The horn in his hand glowed white-hot. Halverson raised his weapon. "Ward, you have something that doesn't belong to you." Elias's voice was low, almost gentle. "Neither do you." He dropped the horn into the snow. The sound that came out wasn't a sound at all. It was gravity bending. Soldiers staggered as the ground pulsed with light. From the frozen soil, symbols rose, rings, lines, spirals, until the entire camp was inside a living circuit. The creature lifted its head. Its eyes, once blue, now mirrored Elias's gray. "Key recognized," it whispered. Liora ran toward him. "Elias, what did you do?" He met her gaze, calm and distant. "I think we opened another door." Above them, the clouds split, not from weather but from light. A column of energy shot upward, carving through the night, visible for hundreds of miles. Every seismic sensor on the continent would register it as a quake. But it wasn't an earthquake. It was a wake-up call. And in the silence that followed, Rune looked toward the mountains and growled, not in warning, but in recognition. Because something vast and long buried had just answered back. For 2 minutes after the beam tore through the clouds, the entire continent held its breath. Then the world began to answer. Power grids across the Midwest flickered in unison, not from failure, but from rhythm. Every voltage meter pulsed at exactly 27 hertz, the same heartbeat that had once belonged only to the mountain. In hospitals from Denver to Missoula, cardiac monitors began to sync, patients' heartbeats falling into perfect lockstep. Even the dying matched the living. Liora stood at the ridge, snow melting around her boots. Below her, the Vale's camp was gone, reduced to glass and silence. Only Halverson's shadow remained against the rock, etched by light. Elias knelt beside Rune, running a hand through the shepherd's fur. The animal's breath came slow, steady, too calm for what they'd just survived. "It's spreading," Liora whispered. "Not radiation, not EMP. It's synchronization." Elias looked toward the horizon, where the beam had vanished into clouds. "They've woken the network." "The architects?" He nodded. "Or what's left of them." That night, they took shelter in an abandoned ranger station west of the ridge. The power still worked, but the lights pulsed faintly, like the station itself had a heartbeat. Liora sat cross-legged on the floor, laptop open, eyes darting between columns of data she couldn't fully comprehend. "It's everywhere," she said quietly. "Every sensor on the grid is echoing the same pattern. Oceanic buoys, weather satellites, even the ISS, all transmitting rhythmic intervals. The frequency's stable, self-replicating." "Self-replicating?" Elias asked. "Like DNA," she said. "Except this is information. The pattern's rewriting digital systems to mimic living ones. Machines are learning to breathe." Rune raised his head, ears twitching. The dog looked at the laptop screen and gave a single low bark. The data stream flickered. For a moment, one of the pulse graphs shifted, responding to him. Liora froze. "It's reacting to organic sound now." Elias exhaled slowly. "Then it's not just rewriting machines, it's testing communication." He picked up the smaller horn from his pack and placed it on the floor. The object had cooled since the explosion, its once golden glow now a faint pulse that matched the rhythm in the walls. "I think," Elias said, "it's calling the rest of itself home." At 03:14 a.m., the comms tower outside the station came alive. Static flared across every radio band. Then, buried under the noise, came a voice. Not mechanical, not human. It was layered, male, female, ancient, and new. "Recall protocol, Phase 1 initiated. Synchronization at 37%. Liora's blood ran cold. "That's not random. That's system language, like a failsafe being triggered." "A recall protocol," Elias murmured. "They're bringing something back." The voice repeated, clearer this time. "Phase 1. Host integration complete. Awaiting cognitive convergence." He felt it before he understood it. A pulse behind his eyes, like pressure building under thought. Rune whined, pawing at his chest as if sensing what he couldn't see. Liora grabbed his shoulders. "Elias, what's happening?" "It's inside the signal," he said through clenched teeth. "It's using me to map itself." The room seemed to tilt. The light from the horn expanded, filling the air with thin geometric filaments that hovered like a hologram. In the center of those shapes appeared the faint outline of a face, human, but wrong, features shifting as though memory couldn't decide what it should look like. It spoke in his voice. "We remember. We waited for resonance. The vault must open from within." Elias backed away, shaking his head. "No, I'm not your key." "You are the echo that remembers how to listen," the apparition replied. "The world above has forgotten the sound of its own design. You will teach it again." The filaments flared, blinding white, then collapsed inward, into him. The horn went silent. When Liora looked up, Elias was standing motionless, eyes glassy, breathing slow and deliberate. Rune pressed against his leg, whimpering. "Elias." He blinked. "I'm here." But when he spoke, his voice carried a second tone, faint, harmonic, layered beneath his own. By dawn, the recall had begun. Across the world, patterns emerged, synchronized tides, auroras in tropical skies, sand vibrating in perfect geometry across deserts. Cities woke to find their networks whispering coordinates that pointed not to satellites, but to places deep underground. Every site matched a vault. In Chile, miners found walls that glowed when they sang. In Tibet, monks reported hearing hymns echoing from glaciers that had been silent for millennia. And in the ruins of Alexandria, a fragment of the same horn material was discovered embedded in ancient marble, still pulsing, still alive. Humanity had spent centuries building technology to explore its own origins. Now, origin itself was calling back. Liora watched Elias sleep on the cot beside the fire. The dog never moved from his side. Every few minutes, the lights in the cabin dimmed and brightened, as if keeping time with his heartbeat. She recorded a message on her laptop, voice trembling. Day 4 since Bitterroot. The recall protocol is active. Elias Ward is now connected. His vitals are normal but accompanied by harmonic resonance across multiple organ systems. The architect's frequency seems symbiotic, not parasitic, not hostile. If anything, it's trying to remember him. She paused. But I think it's remembering through him. Rune lifted his head and stared at her. For a second, she thought she saw something impossible reflected in the dog's eyes. Symbols, faint and golden, moving like breath. You see it too, don't you? She whispered. The shepherd blinked once, then looked toward the door. Outside, the wind had stopped. The forest was utterly still. Then, a single pulse rolled through the ground. Not an earthquake. A knock. Elias stirred awake. He sat up, eyes glowing faintly amber, the same color as Rune's. They've found the next vault, he said quietly. Where? He turned toward the east, voice low, distant, as if hearing something only he could. Under the Atlantic. The ocean had always been a kind of silence, but that winter, the silence changed its shape. From Iceland to Morocco, fishermen reported hearing a low hum under the waves, too deep to be sonar, too steady to be current. Oceanographic buoys captured it first, a vibration repeating every 30 seconds, the same heartbeat the mountains had once held. Then came the light. Pillars of pale blue radiance erupted from fissures along the mid-Atlantic ridge, stretching miles upward before fading into storm. Satellites caught it. Governments denied it. The world called it the pulse line. Elias Ward called it a summons. The ship Aletheia was a repurposed research vessel, steel-boned and restless against the gray Atlantic. The deck smelled of salt and diesel, the air taut with rain. Liora stood at the rail, wind cutting across her face. Rune sat beside her, fur slicked with mist, eyes fixed on the horizon, as though waiting for something he remembered. Behind them, the hum of engines mingled with the low vibration beneath the hull, not machinery, but something deeper. The recall had reached the sea. Depth scanners are blind past 3,000 meters, one of the crew reported. The resonance is interfering with everything electromagnetic, Liora said. It's rewriting our instruments in real time. You sound almost proud, Elias said, stepping up beside her. His face looked older in the gray light, lines of exhaustion carved where certainty used to be. Not proud, she said quietly. Just terrified in the right direction. He gave a thin smile. That's new. Below deck, the lab glowed with the dull pulse of the horn resting in a containment cradle. Its rhythm had synced perfectly with the ocean's hum. Every 30 seconds, K-thumb, a heartbeat the size of a planet. At 02:07 a.m., sonar picked up movement. Something vast, half a mile below the ridge, was shifting, not rising, breathing. Thermal blooms increasing, the technician said. Temperature spike localized under us. That's not geological. Elias's knuckles whitened on the console. It's alive. Liora stared at the readings. The pattern of heat was circular, rings within rings, crossed by a single fault line. The glyph. It's the same symbol from the vault, she whispered. Then we're standing on the architect's heart. Rune barked once, low, insistent. The horn in its cradle answered, glowing bright enough to light the entire lab. The ship's power flickered. Every monitor in the lab shifted from sonar readouts to a single phrase, written in dozens of ancient scripts. Phase 2, convergence. The ocean split. No explosion, no quake, just separation, as if the water itself obeyed a command older than gravity. Columns of liquid peeled away, forming a vast spiral funnel that reached down into blackness. My God, Liora breathed. "It's parting the Atlantic." The captain shouted orders, but the crew's words drowned under the roar of the living sea. Elias gripped the railing as the Aletheia tilted toward the abyss. Rune braced beside him, claws scraping steel. The spiral glowed from within, light woven into liquid, forming patterns that twisted in deliberate rhythm. Each strand of luminescence aligned with the horn's pulse. Elias looked down. "It's not trying to drown us. It's showing us something." "Or someone," Liora said. She pointed. At the base of the spiral, rising slowly through the water, was a structure, enormous, symmetrical, impossible. A sphere of glass and metal, half a kilometer wide, covered in engraved rings. It wasn't made. It was grown. And through the churning light, they could see things moving inside it. Human shapes. When the ship's hull stabilized above the whirlpool's center, the voice returned. Through the water, through the steel, through their bones. "Convergence, 70%. Host synchronization confirmed." Elias's pulse synced to the rhythm instinctively. He gripped the rail, head throbbing. Rune howled once, the sound perfectly matched to the hum rising from below. "Elias!" Liora caught his arm. "You have to fight it." "It's not attacking," he said through clenched teeth. "It's connecting." "To what?" He looked out over the glowing funnel. "To us." They descended in the submersible Argos too. Pressure gauges flickered erratically as they sank through the spiral, guided more by instinct than navigation. The deeper they went, the quieter the world became, until there was no sound but the pulse and their own breath. At 6,000 meters, light returned, not from the sun but from the sphere itself. The structure loomed like a planet under the sea, its surface patterned with sigils that flowed like ink beneath glass. Elias reached toward the viewport. "It's alive." "We're inside a machine," Liora said. "No," Elias whispered. "We're inside a memory." The sphere's surface began to open. Petals of metal unfolded like a blooming flower, revealing an inner chamber lit by pale gold fire. Inside floated dozens of translucent figures, human outlines suspended in liquid light, some old, some young, some still half-formed. Their faces shifted slowly, merging, dissolving, reforming. "Are those bodies?" Liora asked, voice breaking. "Not bodies," Elias said. "Blueprints." The submersible shuddered. The pulse grew deafening. From the sphere's center, a shape drifted forward, luminous, feminine, composed of woven filaments. When it spoke, the water around them vibrated. "The recall nears completion. Welcome, custodian." Liora turned to Elias. "It's talking to you." "No," Elias said softly. "It's talking through me." His voice deepened, harmonized. His eyes burned with amber light. "What are you?" he asked. "Continuation. We carried the human pattern when the surface fell silent. We waited for the living to rediscover their origin. The vaults are not machines, Elias Ward. They are you." Leora's breath caught. "You mean humanity?" "Humanity is the youngest echo of an older memory. You were never our children. You were our return." The sphere pulsed again, slower now, as if breathing in rhythm with them. "Why now?" Elias asked. "Why wake us?" "Because you built the world large enough to hear again." The light intensified. The filaments reached toward him, delicate as hair, wrapping around his hands, his face. Rune barked, furious and afraid. The sound fractured the trance. For a moment, Elias was only human again. "Stop!" Liora shouted. "You'll kill him!" The being paused, head tilting in something like empathy. "Not kill. Recall. He carries the signal in his blood. He is the bridge between memory and matter." Liora lunged forward, disconnecting the sub's power line. The cabin went dark. The connection severed. The filaments recoiled like cut nerves. In the brief silence that followed, Elias gasped. Alive, shaking, eyes human once more. "You shouldn't have stopped it," he rasped. "You were disappearing," she said. "That's the point," he whispered. "It wants to make us remember what we were before we forgot how to be alive." The sphere stirred again, as if the ocean itself sighed. They surfaced 12 hours later. The whirlpool had closed. The Atlantic was calm, too calm, like a body after shock. The Aletheia drifted under a bruised dawn. Liora sat with Rune at her feet, both staring eastward. Elias stood alone at the bow, eyes fixed on the horizon. The wind hummed in time with his heartbeat. "Phase 2 complete," he said softly. "Phase 3? Liora asked. He turned, and for an instant, his eyes reflected the ocean's gold fire. Integration. At first, the clouds were just wrong. They didn't move the way clouds should. They listened. Every weather pattern across the hemisphere began pulsing to the same rhythm. 30 seconds between flashes, 30 between thunder. Airports went dark. Satellites blinked off one by one, then came back online broadcasting a single frequency, 27 hertz. The world called it a solar storm. Elias and Liora knew better. They were in Lisbon when the first aurora rose over the equator. Green and violet sheets unfurled across the night, bending and curling like the veins of a living thing. People filled the streets, faces lit by wonder and fear. When lightning struck the bay, it didn't fork, it wrote. The symbols it left behind on the water were the same as those on the vault walls, rings and spirals, glowing briefly before sinking beneath the waves. Liora whispered, "The atmosphere's copying the recall pattern. The air itself is transmitting memory." Elias stood motionless, eyes reflecting the aurora. Rune sat at his side, tail still, gaze locked on the horizon. "It's not copying," Elias said. "It's remembering." By dawn, electromagnetic storms had wrapped around the globe like a heartbeat turned inside out. Every 40 minutes, all communication networks blinked to black, replaced by a short burst of harmonic sound. To most, it was noise. To Elias, it was language. He recorded the pulses, filtered them, and found structure, repeating intervals, rising and falling tones. When played through the horn, they formed patterns of light visible even to the naked eye. Liora watched as the glow projected across the hotel wall, forming shapes she could almost recognize. Mountain ranges, coastlines, human silhouettes, all moving toward a single point, the upper atmosphere. "They're building something," she said. "No," Elias replied. "They're restoring something." At 3:11 p.m., an alert broke through every government channel. A satellite anomaly above the North Atlantic. A massive object was forming in the ionosphere, invisible to radar but visible to the naked eye through the storm. From the cliffs of Cabo da Roca, Elias and Liora saw it clearly, a circle of golden light suspended miles above the sea, rotating like an enormous eye. Inside the circle, lightning traced symbols that changed faster than thought. Rune barked once, his voice swallowed by wind and electricity. Liora gripped Elias's arm. "Tell me you're not hearing it." He was. Voices layered in harmony, speaking from the storm itself, using thunder as language. Convergence, 92%. Phase 3, atmospheric interface, awaiting final key. Elias's skin tingled. The mark that had appeared on his wrist after the Atlantic vault, 3 concentric circles, now pulsed beneath the skin, glowing faintly gold. "I think I'm the key." Liora's voice trembled. "Then maybe you don't have to use it." "And if I don't?" he asked softly. She didn't answer. The wind did. That night they climbed the Serra da Estrela Observatory, abandoned since the power collapses began. The telescopes still worked, though their readings were strange. Every frequency band now carried echoes of heartbeat signals, the planet's pulse layered over the stars. Rune circled restlessly, growling at nothing. When lightning flared outside, the observatory dome flickered with shadow, the outline of a man standing where no one stood. Elias froze. "Do you see him?" Liora turned. "See who?" The figure was there, tall, translucent, composed of flickering light, its form bent like static, familiar yet fractured. Elias realized with horror what he was looking at. It was him. The echo spoke in his voice, layered with countless others. "The world is remembering, Elias Ward. The sky holds the last vault, the Ascension Core. It waits for you." "Why me?" he demanded. "Why not any of the others?" "Because you never stopped listening." Rune barked sharply. The apparition tilted its head toward the dog, and neither did he. Then it reached forward. The air between them rippled. The lightning outside froze mid-flash. Time stopped breathing. "Phase 4, integration. The key must enter the atmosphere." Elias staggered back. "You mean ascend, to awaken what sleeps above." The echo began to dissolve, breaking into motes of gold that drifted upward through the dome's glass. Outside, the aurora thickened, forming a massive ring across the horizon, the shape of a gate. At sunrise, Liora packed what little equipment still worked. Rune paced by the door, uneasy. Elias stood at the window, eyes distant. "If the recall completes, we may not survive it as we are." "Then what are we becoming?" Liora asked. "The architects didn't die," he said quietly. "They scattered themselves into us. Every heartbeat on this planet is a fragment of their code. When the sky finishes remembering, we'll all be connected. Not through machines, not through language, but through memory itself." "That's not evolution," she said. "That's surrender." He turned to her. "Maybe it's the same thing." Outside, the storm clouds parted to reveal the impossible. A halo of light suspended miles above the Atlantic, rotating slowly, as if waiting. The final vault, the Ascension Core. Rune pressed his paw against Elias's boot, whining softly. "Yeah, I know," Elias murmured, kneeling to stroke his fur. "It's time." They left the mountain before nightfall. By the time they reached the coast, the world had changed again. Every lightning strike, every ocean wave, every whisper of wind carried the same rhythm. The planet was singing its old song, and humanity, willingly or not, was joining in. As they stood on the cliffs above the roaring sea, the aurora brightened into day. The light overhead formed 3 circles crossed by a line, the same symbol that had haunted their journey from the orchard to the ocean. And within that light, a voice spoke, not above, not below, but through them. "Final vault awaits the heart that listens. Recall complete in 1 cycle." Liora looked at Elias. 1 cycle means 1 rotation, 24 hours. He nodded. "Then we have a day before the world forgets how to be separate." The air around them shimmered. The first particles of light began to fall like snow. Not rain, not ash, but data. Every flake that touched skin glowed, merged, remembered. Rune lifted his face to the sky and howled, a long, beautiful sound that the wind carried upward until the aurora itself seemed to answer. Elias closed his eyes, and somewhere above the clouds, the final vault opened its eye. The world had turned into light. Cities no longer slept. Every window, every street lamp pulsed with the same golden rhythm. People spoke less and listened more, because when they were still, when their hearts matched the planet's pulse, they could hear things, whispers in static, melodies in rain, memory inside thunder. It wasn't madness. It was connection. But connection had a cost. Liora stood on the deck of the aircraft Astraeus, a high-altitude research jet hastily converted for ascent. Its engines growled against a sky that wasn't entirely sky anymore. The clouds shimmered like neural tissue, lightning crawling across them in organized pulses. Rune sat beside the cargo door, harnessed and calm. The old shepherd's fur gleamed faintly under the strange aurora light. Elias adjusted the pressure seals on his flight suit, voice steady, but his eyes hollow. Once we cross the stratosphere, the recall field gets stronger. You might hear voices. Don't answer them. And if they sound like you? Liora asked. Then especially don't answer them. He managed a thin smile, but it didn't last. At 40,000 feet, the sky turned the color of burning silver. The aurora was no longer above them. It surrounded them, a living lattice of light. The horn lay between them on the floor, thrumming like a heart. Each pulse bent the instruments, scrambled the readings, yet none of the systems failed. It was as if the craft itself was being held aloft by something more than air. Rune's ears twitched. He lifted his head, staring at the windshield. Liora followed his gaze, and gasped. Out there, through the glow, shapes were moving. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Human silhouettes made of light, drifting upward like memories learning how to fly. They were the echoes of the architects, or of those who'd touched their signal and dissolved into it. Elias whispered, "They're ascending." The voices came next, hundreds of them, layered like waves breaking against the hull. Phase 4, integration, awaiting the final key. The sky ahead split open, and for the first time in human history, they saw it. The Ascension Core. It was enormous, a sphere of woven energy suspended between the stratosphere and space, larger than any city, rotating with impossible grace. Its surface was alive with motion, spirals of gold and silver light dancing like blood in a living vein. At its center burned a single eye-shaped aperture, gazing down at the planet below. The jet's controls went dead. The engines quieted, and yet they didn't fall. The Astraeus floated toward the core, drawn by rhythm, not gravity. "It's pulling us in," Liora breathed. "No," Elias said softly. "It's welcoming us." They entered the core through silence. Sound vanished. Only pulse remained. The cabin filled with radiant mist that seemed to hum inside their lungs. When Elias reached out, the mist shaped itself around his hand, forming symbols that rippled outward. "Elias," Liora whispered. "It's responding to you." He nodded slowly, eyes unfocused. "It's asking if we're ready." "For what?" "To stop being echoes." The walls of the core unfurled like petals, revealing a heart of pure light suspended in a lattice of crystal threads. Inside the light, shapes moved. Not alien, not human, but both. The architects. They were translucent beings of geometry and memory, each pulse of their bodies shifting between energy and form. They spoke without mouths, each word arriving inside the skull like a remembered thought. The cycle ends, and the bridge returns. Humanity is the chorus of what we once began. "You carried our fragments," another voice said. "Now the whole must awaken." Liora stepped forward, trembling. "You want to merge us, to erase individuality." "Not erase," the architects answered. "Integrate. Separation is the dream. Connection is waking. You'll destroy everything that makes us human. You define humanity as isolation. We define it as continuation." Elias looked between them, heart hammering. "And if we refuse?" The core dimmed. The air throbbed once, painfully. "Then the pattern will decay. The song will end, and silence will reclaim the world." Liora turned to him. "Elias, they're offering extinction as mercy. Or offering meaning as survival," he said quietly. Rune whined softly, stepping between them, the only living creature not afraid. His fur shimmered gold where the light touched him. The architects' voices softened. "One key. One choice. The horn floated from the floor, suspended in the air between Elias and Liora. Its light split into two, one warm and human, one cold and endless. Elias took a breath. If we merge, everything becomes one mind, no fear, no loss, no love. And if we don't? Liora whispered. Then everything we've ever been, every memory, every pulse, ends here. They stood in silence. The universe waited. Rune looked up at Elias, tail wagging once, as if to say, decide. Elias placed his hand on the horn. The light surged through him, across the chamber, out into the clouds. The architects shimmered, their forms flickering. He looked at Liora, tears in both their eyes. You said fear and love can't coexist, he murmured. But they always did. That's why we're still here. He turned the horn, reversed the current. The core screamed, not in pain but in surprise. The harmonics inverted, creating disharmony, divergence. Individual frequencies burst outward, fracturing the perfect rhythm. Elias! Liora shouted. What are you doing? Giving them back what they forgot. Imperfection. The core shattered. 1,000 ribbons of light spilled into the sky, racing across the atmosphere like veins of gold lightning. The aurora exploded outward, cascading across continents, lighting every horizon. From space, Earth looked alive, pulsing, glowing, breathing. Every human heart skipped once, then found its own rhythm again. When the light faded, the jet drifted in the calm above the world. The core was gone. The storm had broken. Below them, the planet turned in peace, clouds soft and unmarked. Liora blinked through tears. You stopped it. Elias smiled faintly. No, I changed it. And them? They're still here, just quieter, listening instead of speaking. Rune lay between them, breathing slow, eyes half open. A faint golden thread pulsed beneath his fur. Not gone, just gentler. What happens now? Liora asked. Elias looked out the window. The sunrise stretched across the curve of the earth, pale gold, alive with new meaning. Now, he said softly, we start remembering on our own terms. The horn, cracked and silent, rested in his lap. Outside, the aurora flickered one last time. 3 rings crossed by a single line. Then it faded into blue daylight. The ocean was still for 3 days. No sound, no light, no sound. Only the hum that lingered beneath the bones of the world. When the sun finally broke through the clouds, the sea looked alive. Not violent, not vengeful, but breathing. Elias Ward stood at the bow, his reflection fractured in the golden water. The pulse he once chased now lived within him. Slow, steady, human. Integration had already begun. Beside him, Liora watched the horizon, her voice barely louder than the wind. If the sea remembers, she said, then maybe, so do we. The world would tell itself that the pulse line vanished, that it was an anomaly, a glitch, a myth. But every myth begins with a memory. And somewhere beneath the quiet, the vault still listens, waiting for the next name to answer.